Yeah, no, I don't see any barrier to AI systems being conscious.
Are you happy to wrap a bow on that and move to AI? Because I'm really curious on your opinions there, and we're getting into the later stage of the podcast, and I'm not sure how many opinions you have on AI. If we need a bit of time to flesh it out, but this is obviously one of the most topical conversations around consciousness at the moment. Is what GPT number is going to give a damn? I just spoke to Mark Solms. I like that framing. When will a machine give a damn?
Yes. When will it give a damn? Do you think that's the same as when will it be conscious? It's
If it's a
yeah.
genuine damn and it's not just impersonating a human emotion, if it genuinely gives a damn, as the way I'm defining it, then yeah, I would say that that's conscious.
So yeah, no, I don't see any barrier to AI systems being conscious. I mean, I don't think large language models yet are pretty close to that. I mean, they need to have goals and projects, and need to do better reasoning than large language models can do. I mean, I'm not so fussed about them having sense organs. I mean, there's a kind of line of thought that their words aren't meaningful because they're not grounded in sensory contact with reality.
Right.
Look, 99.99% of my words are meaningful, but not grounded in my sensory contact with reality. We're part of a huge linguistic community, and we get our meaningfulness like being part of the community. I don't have a problem with large language models being meaningful in that way. But one issue you might worry about much more is they're not having bodies, right? I mean, you could have, I mean, think about social companions being produced by AI companies. I mean, you can have a kind of girlfriend who's a large language model plus, and you might get quite involved with them. But in truth, they would be a whole lot of, I hesitate to say software because these are deep neural nets, not standard computer programs, but they're distributed over a whole range of servers all over the world. They shunt bits of information around and so on. I mean, this thing that you're in love with isn't actually anywhere. It can be easily duplicated. It can be paused for 100 years and then turned on again. I mean, there'll be all kinds of respects in which these systems are not anything like biological organisms. And so that makes me think hard about in what sense is this a thing that's conscious. But
Yes.
yeah, I don't know. One thing we haven't talked about, and quite a lot of my interest in the things we have been talking about is involved with this, is which kinds of systems are deserving of moral concern. Which kind of systems should we worry about their welfare, their treatment?
I just spoke with a Dr. Thomas Metzinger, who in 2021 basically said that we should need to have a huge moratorium on AI because we're going to create all of this digital suffering.
Yeah. And no, it's a serious issue, but now notice that it's also an issue when it comes to animals, and the position we kind of gravitated towards with respect to animal consciousness doesn't help us with that.
Right. It's quite arbitrary.
Most people think, look, animals are deserving of moral consideration. They're moral patients. They should have moral standing to the extent they're conscious. I mean, if I don't know, lampreys aren't conscious, then you can treat them how you like. If ants aren't conscious, you can treat them how you like. If bees are conscious, then we should worry about their welfare. But we've kind of spread consciousness so wide that that's not going to help us. I don't think we need to worry about the welfare of bacteria. I don't think we need to worry about the welfare of plants. I don't actually think we need to worry about the welfare of ants. I'm not so sure about bees. But look, one interesting thing is that it's not a good way to answer the question of who we ought to worry about to ask, are they conscious? We've agreed that we aren't going to draw a line about consciousness in anything like the morally significant place.
Yes.
So the welfare depends on what kind of mental organization and sophistication they have. And I think we should address the moral welfare question without asking about consciousness at all. I think consciousness is a red herring when it comes to thinking about moral welfare. It depends on the psychological sophistication, the extent to which they have projects, the extent to which they care for each other, and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of orthogonal to whether they're conscious.
It's interesting because you mentioned there we make decisions on animal welfare based on consciousness. I don't know if I fully agree. I think it's a lot more arbitrarily societally drawn. Like, do people make arguments that cows are less conscious than dogs, yet we're very willing to have one be factory farmed and shuttled off in buses and eaten, and then we don't touch the other? I don't know if that's the consciousness question.
Look, you might. No, people are worried about the welfare of cows, precisely, and quite rightly. I mean, they're quite rightly worried about the welfare of cows. I mean, they will think, and I don't think this is necessarily the right way to ground it, that's to do with cows being conscious. I mean, it's true that they're happy to kill them to eat them.
Yes.
And you might worry about killing cows because you're taking away their future. I mean, they will have relationships to other cows and their offspring and so on. And so, but everybody's unhappy about factory farming cows, or at least they ought to be, because they think they're conscious. But anyway, it's not the case that people don't worry about the welfare of cows, even though they think they're conscious. They do worry about the welfare of cows. Perhaps they don't worry about it enough. No, people don't like factory farming cows, leaving them in.
Yes.
People don't like factory farming chickens. That's all fine. But they think that when it comes to the difficult cases, like, say, crabs, is it all right to factory farm crabs, which people do in not particularly pleasant conditions? They think, okay, the issue here is, are the crabs conscious?
And cook them alive, right? That's something you see a lot with lobsters and crabs, is just being dropped into boiling water while alive.
I think that's banned now, quite rightly, because
well, I just came back from Thailand. They follow a different set of rules over there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the crabs and the lobsters turn out to be pretty smart. And but look, when we try to figure out where was the consciousness line, we didn't find a good place. We were pretty happy to allow bacteria to be conscious, but which I'm happy about. But I don't think we ought to worry about the moral welfare of bacteria just because we think they're, in the sense we agreed, conscious. We need some different basis for deciding which organisms are deserving of moral welfare, apart from asking whether they're conscious. And I think the same thing applies to AI systems. We're going to get ourselves in a twist if we say, oh, come on, we've got to figure out whether they're conscious, and then we'll know whether we have to treat them respectfully. I think we should just decide on the basis of how smart and interesting and sophisticated they are, whether we ought to treat them respectively, and leave the consciousness issue out of it. So I'm rather with Metzinger that
it's a tough one.
This is a serious issue, but I don't want to muddle it up with the issue about consciousness.
It's a tough one. So, yeah, I'm perfectly willing to extend that biological spectrum across the line with consciousness, but it feels different when you're on electrical circuit boards in AI.
Yeah.
Is anything capable? Yeah, I don't know what the foundational criteria should be when we start caring about it. I think it kind of has to care about itself, and what that would mean, I'm not too sure. But
Okay, but
is suffering possible without?
to be tied to consciousness. Look, I think consciousness is so much harder,
Yes.
and we're going to get distracted. I mean, look, here's the classic example: Star Trek, New Generation, Commander Data. There's an episode. Is it okay to chop him up for used parts because he's just a machine? And now, philosophers think it's really an open question whether Commander Data is conscious, because it's possible our being conscious depends on our being made of meat, and Commander Data is made of silicon chips. So maybe he's not conscious. Philosophers think maybe he is, maybe he's not. We can't be sure. So we can't be sure whether it's okay to cut him up for spare parts, because it would be fine if he's not conscious, and maybe precautionary principle we can't. But yeah. My view is no, you've got yourself down a rabbit hole here. It's perfectly obvious that you shouldn't be chopping him up for spare parts. He's a nice guy. He's interesting. He's got concerns. That's obvious. And if you have philosophical reasons for thinking he might not be conscious, that's beside the point. So, and I feel that about the AI systems. Now, no, Commander Data's got a body. He's very much like us in that respect. He doesn't raise all the questions about systems that are distributed across all kinds of different servers. But I think this issue is going to come to a head pretty soon. I don't know what Metzinger said. I've known Metzinger a long time. He's fun. He's
great. We had a lovely conversation. Yeah, really fun.
I want to digress a bit. What Metzinger is a real expert on, I don't know if this came up, is out-of-body experience.
It did. We talked. I was really interested in this. We talked about it for about 30 minutes because I had one and I was interested in hearing about his experiences and everything. Yeah, that was the first probably 40 minutes. The conversation's coming out soon. I'll link it to you when it's out. It was really fun. We talked about it for probably 45 minutes.
I've heard him describe recipes for giving yourself out-of-body experiences, and I must say I've never been tempted to try.
No?
No.
I like shifting my consciousness in all the ways that I can. I'm intellectually curious in that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm up for that generally, but the other seems a bit step too far for me anyway. But I think so. I think the social companion business. I mean, I'm rather dubious about attempts at AI regulation. I think it's going to be very hard to regulate AI developments without stopping things you don't want to stop. But
yes,
when it comes to social companions, I think that's an area for regulation. I mean, there's going to be these systems that people kind of become very attached to, fall in love with, that are owned by commercial organizations who can jack up the fees once you're hooked, and I think that ought to be right. But anyway, there are going to be people.
We've already seen this. Did you hear about this? So when GPT-4 was updated to GPT-5, apparently OpenAI got a swarm of emails from people saying that they had destroyed their best friend. Because people had fallen in love. They had just formed connections with the weights of the model of GPT-4. And when GPT-5 came in with a different personality, they were like, this is a different person, or this is a different model. This isn't my friend.
So I don't think we're many years off what will be kind of a crisis, a moral crisis. There's going to be people who are convinced that these companions are deserving of moral concern, and they won't want to upset their own and they won't want other people upsetting their they'll think that people shouldn't be allowed to mistreat these systems.
And so that's an interesting flipping. That's a really interesting flip for me. So you think that the value in that we should care about these systems because other people do. It's not about an arbitrary definition of consciousness.
So far, I haven't expressed a view about whether these people who have these concerns are right or not. because there'll be other people who say this is completely ridiculous. These are just the autocomplete devices. They're no smarter than a thermostat. I mean, just kind of what are you talking about? And there'll be a big dispute. I mean, you can imagine people kind of getting very agitated on both sides, and I mean, there's a very big and difficult kind of meta-ethical issue. I mean, suppose that people who are fully informed understand perfectly well how these systems work, everything about them, they're not deluded at all. They find themselves concerned about what's happening to them. Is there some higher standard that shows that, I mean, is that enough that these kind of natural emotional reactions form concern for these systems? Is that enough to say that they really are deserving of concern? I'm not especially taking a view about that.
I don't know how I feel about that. I'm highly undecided. I don't know how to even start thinking about it.
But people are going to have to think about the issue, because it's going to become a real issue not too long in the future.
I mean, it already is, by what I saw. Literally already is.
Advice: do not go down the rabbit hole of asking, are they conscious? That's just muddy water. We just want to get past that and ask, how do they work? What do they do? Do they give a damn? Are they, independent agents? Do they have interests? I mean,
interesting.
Okay. That's what I think about AI.
And do you think that scaling up the current approaches of these LLMs and just giving them more and more data, that we will arrive at a point more and more that people are concerned morally about their suffering? Because that's one that I find that hard to relate to or to resonate with. I don't relate with having any connection with these models in a chat. Like, it's a useful tool, a highly useful tool. So
I'm rather on the other side about that. I mean,
interesting.
So
that's a really interesting one to me.
Well, look. It's very interesting how kind of informed, right-thinking opinion has evolved on this issue. Kind of the standard view is kind of yours. These are not very interesting systems. They're a long way off being seriously intelligent and creative and goal-directed and so on. That's not my view. I always thought the hard bit was getting systems that can construct coherent sequences of thoughts, of speech, and so on. And look, maybe you're not old enough. I mean, I grew up with the kind of Chomskyan Fodor classical computationalist tradition that connections machines, no good at all. Real intelligence is kind of digital reasoning and so on. And I take it that large language models have just disproved that. And within that tradition, it was perfectly clear that computational systems were never going to be able to speak. It was just kind of too hard. I mean, we are much, much better than any computers, right? And then it turned out amazingly. I can remember Henry Shevlin. I don't know him. He's AI lecturer in Cambridge. He's an old friend of mine, and it was 2020, and it was GPT-3, and for the first time, you had a machine that could make intelligent conversation and speak elegant English and completely grammatical and elegant and to the point. And so it was just GPT-3. It wasn't that good actually, but and so I thought, look, this is the main breakthrough. I mean, look, here I am chattering away we're nearly getting to 2 hours now, aren't we? So we're going to have to stop in a bit. Word after word. How do I do it? Okay. And it's always been a puzzle. I mean, where do all these thoughts come from? And where do all these words come? Well, you might think, well, you form these thoughts, but where do the thoughts come from? And when you look at large language models, there's an obvious answer. We've become very good at choosing an appropriate next word in conversation, and you think, oh God, is that all there was to it? You know?
Right.
But the truth is, one shouldn't belittle that ability. I mean, my ability to choose an appropriate next word is informed by all the things I've read, all the things I've heard, all the past thoughts I've had.
Right.
And it's not a trivial thing to be. Yeah, I'm not the best next word predictor there ever was, but you know, and maybe Shakespeare was just a wonderfully good person for choosing the appropriate next word. But it's not like you had some higher mental process that you used to choose the next word that was appropriate.
Yeah.
It comes out because you're good at choosing. And that turns out to be, to my mind, the thing that explains most of distinctive human abilities. Now, of course, what we've got is something like, an idiot savant pub bullshit, or somebody who you fall into conversation, they'll just start chuntering away. They say whatever comes into their head. They got a lot of things to say. They don't worry about whether it's true. They don't think about whether what they're saying is consistent with what they said before. They don't check the facts and so on. But those extra things, that's just kind of easy to add on. I mean, if you think what we do with humans, that they grow up being able to talk, and then we send them to school for 20 years to learn some rules about how to discipline your thinking, to learn some rules about how to make sure that the choices you make are ones that are going to maximize your utility. We give them lots of extra techniques for, checking whether the answer is right. All of mathematics, all of the records, look things up and so on. And I think it's easy. I mean, compared with getting a system that will speak, I think adding on all the extra things that we can do is just like teaching a kid for 20 years at school. And I don't think that we've got any magic these machines don't have. The magic was all in being able to speak grammatical English or similar, and the other bits are just going to be rote learning things you're taught at school. System 1 and system 2 stuff.
Yes. The Giant Shoulder mission is to explore radical ideas in biology, neuroscience, and consciousness, and elevate those stories to the highest possible level while keeping them accessible to everyone. If this interests you and you want to support independent science, then please consider subscribing to the Clips channel